Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you all have a program. Does anybody need a program? No, everybody's got one. Good. I greet you in the traditional greetings of your and our communal faith traditions. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Alaikum. Namaste. Buenas noches, mis queridos hermanos y hermanas. Bienvenidos. Su presencia aquí es importante cuando nos celebra la dignidad para todos y cada persona. Thank you all for coming. Know you're welcome here at St. Paul, and we mean that not just in empty words. If we can do something for you, the Catholic Church here in the Diocese of Lexington can do something for you. If we can help you in some way, you have only to ask, and we'll be willing to do what we can to share with our sisters and brothers. If you're interested in being part of the United movement to serve the common good, please fill out a What's Next card before you leave tonight. They will be over in the cafeteria after this is over, and you're welcome to fill one of those out. We ask you for your name and your email address, and then we can keep in touch with you and let you know what's happening when we're serving the common good, when we have these kind of encounters, or when we are having dialogues to learn about one another and engage in conversation. And then you can just leave it right there on the table. There'll be empty ones there, there'll be ones that you filled out, and it'll be terrific. Just leave them all right there and we'll get them at the end. So after this encounter, you are welcome to come to the St. Peter and Paul School cafeteria for some fellowship, for desserts, and I think there's some fruit and vegetables there. There's all kinds of things. Please come to encounter sisters and brothers in a new way, after here praying with one another and enjoying one another in the presence of the divine, to speak with one another for a little while and enjoy some fellowship. Our LGBT ministry, Together on the Bridge, is hosting tonight's fellowship over in St. Paul and St. Peter and Paul cafeteria. There will be 3 more encounters here in St. Paul Church, and they will be in succession in the fall. We also will have one more dialogue in October, and it will be about the care of creation, caring for our planet, caring for this gift that we've been given by a wonderful Creator. And we're going to add one person to that particular dialogue. We will have representatives from the Jewish faith. Bishop John will be one of them, representing the Christian faith. We will have, I think, Dr. Nadia will be on the panel as well, I believe, representing the Muslim tradition. And we will also have our Zen priest with us, representing our Buddhists of that as well. So you'll hear more about that. In the meantime, though, on the 25th of June, there's going to be something very novel that will happen in this city. And it will be the first time ever that there is a Pride interfaith service here in Lexington. It will be at the Lyric Theater, and just as we have stood with our Hispanic, Muslim, Jewish sisters and brothers, and tonight we stand with our high school students, we'll stand with our LGBT sisters and brothers in a time of prayer, an interfaith witness to the dignity all of us share together. Please God, we're drawing the circle ever wider. Our common family is growing in love and acceptance and unlearning fear and hate. At a time when people of color, Muslims, Jews, women, people with varying abilities, the poor, immigrants, and LGBT persons are being specifically targeted, bullied, and are the victims of ugly actions and words. It's essential that we find the courage to speak out and stand together may this just be a beginning tonight in our standing together to end racism, bullying, and bigotry. We, all of us together, are a living sign of unity and respect for the dignity of every person who shares a dignity that's given by a common creator. We celebrate this diversity, which is our strength. Celebramos nuestra diversidad, que es nuestra fuerza. Somos una familia diversa. Cuando aceptamos al otro, encontramos nuestra fuerza. Much like the Mexican folk song that you're going to have the opportunity to sing during this encounter this evening, our beauty, and indeed the beauty of our whole world, is found in our beautiful colors, our skin tones, our ways of living, our beliefs, our beautiful, diverse human family. We shine like diamonds and inspire awe, as does the beautiful rainbow that reaches across the earth to demonstrate our Creator's care and love. Todos los colores de la diversidad son bellos. Please take time to meet at least one person you do not know tonight. Building the culture of encounter is the only way we'll get over fear, break down prejudice and intolerance, and really get to know, and better yet, get to love one another as sisters and brothers. The United Encounters and Outreaches are designed with the hope that we can demonstrate how a diverse group can serve the common good by realizing that we have common ground, and that is the dignity we all share under a common creator. We don't have to agree on everything to respect one another and serve alongside one another. So please, get to know someone new this evening. Give yourself and somebody else that gift. Now, if you might just take a moment, would you stand up and greet the people around you so you know who is next to you, sister and brother. Now, just to take your seats, we'll be ready to start in just a moment. Maybe we could, just in a moment of silence, prepare ourselves to encounter the divine in one another and to experience the divine in our gathering. In just a moment, we'll invite you to join us in singing the hymn that's in your program, in our unity procession.
Well, the note at the bottom of this reading says, "Please be seated," which means that it's my honor to say to all of you, please rise, the call to worship. Avotenu v'Imotenu, God of our mothers and our fathers, God that reminds us that we are one great human family. We gather, each of us called beloved, each of us claimed. We gather. No matter who we are or where we are on life's journey, we are welcome. Our Creator, source of life, calls us to wholeness, to oneness, and recognize our shared humanity, our shared kinship, our shared hope, our shared gratitude. United in acceptance we come, and we gather together to celebrate our unique diversity woven into a beautiful tapestry of understanding, love, and peace. Please be seated.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace on you. I am going to use my phone today because it's my cheat sheet. I don't have my piece of paper. In thinking of all that's happened since the election, I want to tell you a story. I always say that American Muslims are proud to be Americans, and we contribute in every way to the local society and this country. We also vote, and we also pay our taxes. So just a few months ago, when we were paying our taxes, my CPA was very worried about me. He said, "I've been really sick thinking about you since the election. And I think the best thing you should do, Nadia, is go ahead and get a gun." And you know what I said? No, I'm not a gun kind of girl. And if I'm going to kill anybody, I'm going to kill them with kindness and with love and maybe with food, okay? So I didn't get a gun, and I don't have a gun. But after he talked to me, I talked to him, I think he felt comfortable that I was okay. A few words I'd like to say. One second, when this works, then we're okay. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I would like to tell you that our last president said, "We are not at war with Islam," while our current president says, "Islam hates us." So he has really ignited this hate that we're fighting. Donald Trump's former national security advisor warned of a world war against a mass movement of evil people, most of them inspired by radical Islam. And that is the way we have ignited the hate and the fear in this country. So then they will say, can you blame Americans for being confused when our government and our president is talking like that? The number of hate groups specifically targeting Muslims in the US has tripled across in 2016, and figures from major cities suggest that Islamophobic hate crimes has been on the rise since Donald Trump was elected. One physician said, "After 9/11, society told me to hate the Prophet Muhammad. By 2004, I opened my mind. And by 2015, I see the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, as a role model." The Prophet says, help your brother, whether he is an oppressor or he is oppressed. And the Prophet was asked, is it right to help him if he is oppressed? It's right. But how can we help him if he is the oppressor? And the Prophet replied, by preventing him from oppressing others. So we also have to pray for the bullies who are out there, who are oppressing us. And of course, it is beautifully written in the Quran, O mankind, indeed, we have created you from a male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted with all that you do. So our job on this planet is to love each other, to take care of each other, meaning our neighbor, our society, our city, our country. And we as American Muslims stand with you in taking care of everybody in Lexington, in Kentucky, in the US, and in the whole world. Thank you.
Let me be peace. Gracias, Padre, por reunirnos aquí, pues estamos sedientos de ti. Estamos sedientos del Dios de la vida. Nos dice el Salmo 41, como el venado busca el agua de los ríos, así cansada mi alma te busca a ti, Dios mío. Envía, Señor, tu luz y tu verdad, que ella nos convierte en vida. Sabemos que a eso vino Jesús, a guiarnos a la vida. San Juan nos dice que Jesús es el pastor. Nos dice, yo soy el buen pastor porque conozco a mis ovejas y ellas me conocen a mí. Dios Padre, aún en este tiempo de ansiedad, de incertidumbre, preocupación para tantos, en la cual nos sentimos como los potrillos que les quitan a su madre. Estamos atemorizados por el miedo y la preocupación. Sabemos que tú has enviado a tu Hijo para guiarnos a mejores pastos. Sabemos que Él nos conoce y sabe de nuestra necesidad, de nuestra sed. Envía tu Espíritu, Dios Padre, para que nosotros lo reconozcamos a Él también, lo reconozcamos a través de cada uno de nuestros hermanos, a través de toda esta gente de buen corazón y deseo reunida aquí en este día, buscando el anhelo, la unidad, la paz y la armonía. Cuando nos reunimos aquí sentimos en nuestro corazón las palabras de Jesús que nos dice, la paz esté con ustedes. Te pedimos que nos ilumines y nos guíes a mejores pastos, al lado de todos los que tienen sed y hambre de ti, sin importar raza, color o religión.
We'd like to invite you to join us in singing from your programs this beautiful Mexican folk song. You can sing in Spanish, join us. If not, the melody is very, very easy. You'll be able to sing in English. We'll go back and forth, just as in your program. Please join us if you can.
Good evening. My name is Brian Cole. I'm the rector at Good Shepherd Episcopal here in Lexington. I was asked to pray out of my tradition and aware that while the Book of Common Prayer is a beautiful text and a comprehensive text, it does not even begin to gather the scope of all that we are tonight. So with permission for Bishop Stowe, I'm going to steal from Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton, a very gifted monk who was in this great commonwealth for so many decades, who at the end of his life traveled Southeast Asia in 1968 and participated in a spiritual summit in Calcutta, great depths of many world religions. And at the end of that time was asked to pray. So I want to read his brief remarks and the prayer he offered, realizing that we are not gathering in a time possibly of great hope, but we are coming in a time when there's much that seems fragile in our world. To realize our prayers are not simply offered up to God, but they're also offered to the future. So while we live in a time of uncertainty and great fragility, we still live in a time that has been ordained and blessed by God. So the last word is not the word that we will offer. The last word will come from the God who loves us and makes us. So all that we are offering now are simply temporary words. So I will offer these words of Thomas Merton. First, we realize that we are going to have to create a new language of prayer. And this new language of prayer has to come out of something which transcends all our traditions and comes out of the immediacy of love. We have to part now, aware of the love that unites us, the love that unites us in spite of real difference, real emotional friction. The things that are on the surface are nothing. What is deep is real. We are creatures of love. I ask you to concentrate on the love that is in you, that is in us all. O God, we are one with you. You have made us one with you. You have taught us that if we are open to one another, you dwell in us. Help us preserve this openness and to fight for it with all our hearts. Help us to realize that there can be no understanding where there is mutual rejection. O God, in accepting one another wholeheartedly, fully, completely, we accept you and we thank you and we adore you and we love you with our whole being, because our being is in your being. Our spirit is rooted in your spirit. Fill us then with love. And let us be bound together with love as we go our diverse ways, united in this one spirit which makes you present in the world and which makes you witness to the ultimate reality that is love. Love has overcome. Love is victorious. Amen.
Greetings to all. The light in me bows to the light. I was kindly invited to bring our singing bowl, our bell. So I thought I might as well bring what we call our evening bell chant. It's something we chant at the Lexington Zen Center. It's a prayer to shatter through all human illusions, which we all have many. And translated from Korean, it goes like this. Hearing the sound of the bell, all thinking is cut off. Wisdom grows, enlightenment appears, hell is left behind. The three worlds are transcended, vowing to awaken and save all beings. Om Gara Jia Saba. In Zen we say not knowing is most intimate. Not knowing doesn't mean ignorance or stupidity. Not knowing means embracing our neighbor and offering her a place at our table. It means to sit down and meet each other from the freshness of a not knowing mind and an open heart, regardless of faith, regardless of skin color, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of country of origin, regardless of political beliefs, regardless, just regardless. That's the hardest work of all, to embrace the other, to embrace others. We don't have to like them all, but can we love them? Those who have different views, different lives, different attitudes. We don't have to like them. Can we love them? Those in power, the power to bring destruction, darkness, and despair. We don't have to like them, but can we love them? Those we fear, and those who instill fear in others. We don't have to like them, but can we love them? Those who hate, and those who spread hatred. We don't have to like them, but can we love them? The bullies, the bigots, the fearmongers, the silent bystanders. We don't have to like them, but can we love them? Transcend fear and hate. All change begins and ends there. The oneness of our essence underlies the separateness of all appearances. It invites us to transcend opposites and become humble in the face of what is. And from there do whatever is necessary. Sometimes that might mean staying seated on a bus. Sometimes that might mean standing up to a bully. Sometimes that might mean saying no, loud and clear, together with others. And sometimes it might mean standing up alone, trembling, with a shaking voice, saying out loud what we know to be true. At all times, it means being willing to embrace the never-ending bigotry of our own hearts and minds, shattering the internal hell with which our judgmental mind never ceases to recreate stories of separation, division, and disconnect. We don't have to like them, but can we love them? Munjong song bone
Benny Goodman, eat your heart out. The teaching from my Christian brothers and sisters that false modesty is ugly to the Lord, so I'll just say if you want to hear more clarinet like that, you can come to Temple Adith Israel. You can hear Bell play some more. So many an introducer gets the chance to say these words. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to introduce this panel. So let me begin with these words. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to introduce this panel. But before I do that, there are a few other pieces of recognition that we need to take care of. First and foremost, it's been said that behind every good idea is a lot of hard work. Will you please join me in recognizing J.R. Zurkowski for all the hard work? Now, if you follow Facebook at all, there's a lot of these things, sort of the old game, 2 truths and a lie, or 10 concerts I've been to, one of them I haven't been to, and you get to figure out which one. So I'm gonna play a little game with you, because I wouldn't want to actually tell a lie in church, but one of these things isn't exactly accurate. So, Bishop John Stowe and Rabbi David Wirtschafter have 3 things in common. We both were the starting center for our college basketball teams. We both love social justice and interfaith work. And we both just completed 2 years serving in the Lexington community. Which one wasn't sure? So I'm told that there was a mass honoring our friend and colleague, our brother, Bishop John Stowe on Friday. I'm sure you can relate to this, Father Stowe. I work on the Sabbath, so I wasn't able to get there. But let me just say now, for those of you like myself who are old enough to remember this slogan, this gimmick, raise your hand now. I know it's going to mark us by our age a little bit. If you're old enough to remember the sign, you don't have to be Jewish to love Levy's Jewish Rye. I want you to raise your hand. Okay, the rest of you can look it up on Google later. You'll get the joke. The application is the following. You don't have to be Jewish to love Levy's Jewish Rye, and you don't have to be Catholic to love Bishop John Stowe. Whether it is the way he champions the rights of the LGBTQ community, whether it's his passion for the issue and the welcoming of refugees, whether it's his commitment to the environment, or any number of issues too many to name. Bishop Stowe brings compassion and courage to everything he does. Will you please join me in thanking him for his ministry? Now, for reasons that will eventually, if you're patient, become aware, I'm going to introduce our panel in reverse order. I'm going to ask each of you to please come forward as I call your name, a drill with which I'm sure you're totally unfamiliar with from years of being in school. The first of this August panel, it's an August panel because they can't wait for August. I'd like to call forward a friend of mine, a friend of this community, a friend of my family. Will you please come forward, Sahar Mohammadzadeh? She is a junior at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School. She's active in Student Voice Pritchard Committee. She's a big part of the speech and debate team, and in the name of being well-rounded, I would like to point out that she's also a swimmer and a pianist. Will you please welcome Sahar? I'd also like to call up at this time Leighanne Guettler-James. Leighanne is a junior at Henry Clay High School. As part of a running theme, she is also active in speech and debate. We gotta stop raising our kids to be debaters. It's a big mistake. She's active on the competitive dance team. She participates in a local chapter of Girl Scouts, and she recently joined Student Voice Pritchard Committee. The third and final speaker, you'll have to pardon me, I have real trouble pronouncing his middle name. It's a huge problem for me. Zachariah Wirtschafter, Sippy, is also a junior at Henry Clay High School. I'm also blessed to say that he's a member of the Speech and Debate Club. He's active in leadership on Student Voice and Pritchard Committee, and is the outgoing president of our Temple at Israel Jewish youth group, Lexington, and he does all this despite having a rabbi for a dad. Panel, I want to quickly share with you the words of the poet Khalil Gibran. You might know this particular passage where his main character, the prophet, is asked to speak to the public about children. And this chapter has become famous from a beautiful song inspired by these words from the African-American gospel group Sweet Honey in the Rock that you may have heard. It says that your children are not your children. You can house their bodies, but not their thoughts. They have their own thoughts. Strive to be like them. You cannot make them just like you. So, my dear august panel, what can I say to you other than that one day, when I grow up, I hope to be just like you.
It's not every day to be introduced by a father. A couple weeks ago marked the Jewish holiday of Passover, of Pesach, marking the Exodus from Egypt. Following Passover is 49 days. 49 days known as the Omer, of waiting and counting until Shavuot, Pentecost, when Moses went up to Sinai and received the Torah, the holy book from God. 49 days of waiting and counting and considering our actions, who we are, what we do for our community. Forgive me, but tomorrow I have a calculus exam. And I have some of these thoughts rattling around in my brain. And there's the notion of when you're looking at horizontal asymptotes, you can't always find what exactly they'll do at any given moment, but you can predict their end behavior. I love this notion because I like to apply it to social justice and politics. You see, at any given moment, there can be turbulent times, more peaceful ones. There can be times of great social liberalism and progressivism, those of reactionary conservatism, and somewhere in between. But at the end of the day, as time approaches infinity, I'd like to hope that the arc of time, as Dr. King said, bends towards love and justice. And so in January, one day, I'd had enough. The swastika scrawled on a bathroom stall in my high school was the straw that broke the camel's back. After experiencing and witnessing a year and a half of anti-Semitism in my school, I went to Facebook to post the testimonial. I was tired of being called the Christ killer, being subjected to Jewish jokes, derided for the greed of my people, mocked for the size of my nose, and receiving swastikas. I was, above all else, being tired of being told that anti-Semitism was no longer a problem by the very same people who perpetrated these actions, because they were just joking around and having fun. And perhaps that's why I find it so distressing that the first question I was asked by my administrators when I went public was, who did this? These actions were rooted in ignorance, not in malice. What was sorely needed was a dialogue, an open discussion, not penal measures. Many of these people were, and still are, my dearest friends, my peers. And I shared my experience in an effort to catalyze a conversation, not to punish any given person or make them feel bad. The question that I was asked by my administrators is emblematic of a larger issue that we face, the gap that exists, the empathy gap that exists between students and adults, who often see school in radically different lights. As we gather here today, we affirm that the student experience is important for gaining a more whole and complete pictures of both our school and society at large. When we consider the great social issues of our time, the political ramifications and their history, it's important that we don't ever lose sight of the narrative, of the actual human experience, because nothing does that better than the personal story. Data and surveys do not give us a complete picture. What makes America great are stories like that of my grandparents. The tale of a New Jersey-born Jew and an Indian Hindu immigrant meeting in the 1960s and getting married, and then proceeding to get divorced. But regardless, what makes America great is the story of Sahar's father, trekking from Iran to America after the revolution, and the contribution of immigrants from all walks of life to this country. What makes America great is the passion and the vigor that Leighanne shares when she details and fights against the institutionalized racism in our school system. You see, the reality is that students don't just experience school climate, we create it. Students don't just witness the political fighting, the language of hate or derision, we experience it. We all experience it, we all internalize it. As a Jewish American, I can personally attest to the fact that with increasing visibility and the seeming acceptability of the voices of neo-Nazis, of anti-Semites, of racists and bigots, and it concerns me. It should concern us all, not just when it's bad of ourselves, but bad of others. Jews must be concerned with racism. Muslims must be concerned with homophobia. Intersectionality makes it clear that when one of us is attacked, we are all attacked as well. Organizations across the country have seen an uptick against the crimes against people of color, of Mexicans and immigrants at large, against Muslims and Jews, gays and lesbians, against members of the transgender community. When are we going to say enough is enough? What's needed is a culture of empathy, not punishment. A recognition of our shared struggles, of the intersectionality and the pain that we experience is needed. Now is a time to unite. A time to unite as a community. Unite as brothers and sisters and as peers. In our hopes and not our fears. In our love and not our hate. And in our shared vision of a better world. The issues that we face are much larger than one person or one movement, a single political climate. We must be careful to love those whom we disagree with, for it is most challenging. In Deuteronomy, Moses reminds the Israelites to not despise an Edomite because he is your brother. Do not despise the Egyptian because you were a stranger in his land. Just because we disagree with someone, just because they spew things that we disagree, does not make them any less human. They deserve the same respect and empathy that we demand for ourselves. Perhaps that was why I was pleasantly surprised when I was contacted by the local newspaper and TV stations, many of my teachers and peers, because they all assured me that they wanted to make a change. Now is that time in our community. Rabbi Hillel asked, if not now, when? And if not me, then who? It is in that same spirit that I invite my dear friend, Leighanne, to continue the conversation.
Hi. Today I'm just going to share a little bit with you about my experience as a person of mixed race in the accelerated cluster on that note. So in the 3rd grade, I was accepted into the accelerated cluster at an elementary school on the other side of town. One that was not especially diverse, with a primarily white student body. This was extremely different from the previous elementary school I attended, where the student population was primarily minority. Here in the 4th grade, I had my first realization that people could relate skin color to character. I noticed that the other kids in my program, the ones in band, orchestra, and academic team, were for the most part Asian and white, while the general students, whom my peers largely looked down upon, because they weren't as involved in these perceivably prestigious programs, were largely Black and Latino. There were only a couple other Black students in the program, and I don't remember anyone Latino. Darker skin in my impressionable young mind became related to lower intelligence and less accomplishment. Even so, I always found myself being jealous of these general students. Not because they were part of special programs, but because they seemed like they belonged, something that I never truly felt in the cluster. The general students had peers and teachers who looked like me, who I could relate to, and I wanted that. I was one of only 3 Black students in my grade. Even as a 4th and 5th grader, I felt disenfranchised by the harsh race distinctions in the school and in the program. I found it hard to trust my teachers like the other students did, not because my teachers treated me differently than the other students, but because of the racial barrier that I felt between my peers and my teachers and myself. Not only did I feel like I didn't belong in the cluster, I felt like I was lower than the other students because I had darker skin. My first 3 years in the accelerated cluster were rough. I had to learn to relate to students and teachers that I had little in common with, other than measured intelligence, and to adjust to actually being challenged by curriculum. The middle school I attended was a different story from elementary. The student body was, again, largely Latino and African American, but this time I experienced this diversity in an entirely different way. The kids in the program had their own area of the school in which we stayed for the entire day, aside from 2 hours of exploratory classes. The other students, who were districted to the school, had their own areas. The district surrounding this Title I school was primarily underprivileged and had high crime rates, yielding a student population with many behavioral problems and a culture that was vastly different from that of the cluster. Again, I was one of only a few African American students in the program. Other students would often call me an Oreo because I was Black on the outside and white on the inside. I guess being well educated makes you white. The identity that I formed was complicated. I was obviously Black or half Black, but I wasn't Black. The Black kids were like the general students who were rowdy, got into fights, listened to rap music, and didn't excel in school. I definitely wasn't that, but I wasn't white either, as evidenced by the expectation that I knew about Black things like popular rap music and fried chicken. The nuanced challenges of being mixed race only perpetuated my feelings of alienation. Most of the students in my program considered the general students to be of lower worth and wouldn't be caught dead socializing with them. Despite this, at times I felt that I identified more with the general students than the students in the program. Again, all of my teachers were white, and the general students had teachers that were diverse in race. I remember thinking how cool those teachers seemed and how they seemed to care about students that no one else did. I can't think of a teacher that I thought cared about me in middle school. They seemed to be completely oblivious to the racial distinctions in our school and never once expressed an understanding of how it felt to be in my position or what challenges I faced because of my skin tone, which irreversibly connected me with the general students that they themselves looked down upon. Every assignment seemed to be a challenge to my capability, an obstacle meant to prove I didn't belong in the cluster, but rather in the general classes with the other African American students. To this day, I've never had a teacher who wasn't white in any class other than Chinese, which has been taught by a Chinese woman since I started in the 4th grade. The mistrust that I feel for teachers has lessened over the years as I have become more aware of the origin of my feelings, but is not completely eradicated. And although I've been able to do well in school, I feel that a lack of identification with my teachers has had a significant impact on my quality of education. I've witnessed many of my friends growing strong relationships with teachers over the years and using these relationships to get exceptions from assignments, help with concepts, recommendations, and just general support in classes. A few teachers have asked me why I didn't just come talk to them about something or tell them what was going on before the situation affected my grade or before I got too behind. I always respond with, I don't know. But the truth is that I did know. I didn't say anything because I did not think they would care. I didn't trust them enough. In a school system that is sorely lacking in teacher diversity and conversation about minority experience, I owe my success to a strong support at home and a few role models who have believed in my ability to succeed. Without these privileges, which many students do not have, I don't know how or if I would have come this far. On that note, I'd like to invite my friend Sahar to continue.
It is most definitely not an easy task to speak after those two eloquent speakers who I've had the honor of knowing these last few years. Especially, I'd like to thank Zach for introducing me to this opportunity, which I am greatly relishing the opportunity to speak to. Like any great speaker, I'd like to open up with a brief narrative of how I came to be here. See, my parents came home from their first parent-teacher conference extremely anxious. My preschool teacher had convinced them that I was mute. If any of you know me, I'm anything but mute. My mother mumbled, "I don't understand, she speaks so much at home," and my teacher responded with, "Yes, but does it convey meaning? She's exhibiting symptoms of schizophrenia, mumbling to herself, muttering meaningless rhymes, and lacking in social development." This assumption plagued my mother. It lacked any correlation with the girl that she had come to know so well. By 6 months, I had learned to speak my mother tongue of Farsi or Persian. By the age of 1, I was reading the childhood stories that she grew up with in the Iranian Revolution. By the age of 2, I spoke Spanish fluently with my neighbors. And by the age of 3, I was mute. The situation was so devoid of consistency that my mother had to observe the scene for herself. The next day, she walked into class and I was right behind her with my little arms grasping her shins tightly. Through the eyes of my teacher, the day that ensued failed to be anomalous, but for the first time in months, I was understood. The mumbles were not incoherent chatter. Mother recognized them as words. It was a random mixture of French and Spanish and Farsi, but there were words nonetheless. My teacher had diagnosed my use of language as a disability. Simply because we failed to comprehend other voices does not mean that they're not valid. Lack of cultural empathy is not rooted in hatred or prejudice, but rather a failure to communicate. A day after my mother was informed of this instance, my teacher came back to school with the Spanish to English dictionary, and for the first time had a conversation with me after 4 months of being in her preschool class. The acquisition of language is inherently accompanied by an appreciation and a respect for the native culture that could never be provided by the restraints of a single tongue. Many American high schoolers grow up these days believing that learning dialects and memorizing their beautifully articulated verb conjugations is a chore. They have a strong sense of self-identity that focuses on their language and their culture being in the right. But here's where the issue arises. According to the latest poll of American citizens by the New York Times, 75% of us are unable to hold a conversation in a foreign language. Now, this may be a little troublesome here in the United States because we live in a cosmopolitan nation in which the minority is becoming the majority. We lack understanding, accuracy, and respect because we lack communication. In point of fact, there has been some emphasis placed on languages, especially Spanish and French when it comes to learning in schools. New policies have been added in order to make sure that these languages are a requirement for a graduation. But do you see the discontinuity? Just look a little bit closer. Every single language that we teach in schools has the same alphabet as English. What about Arabic? What about Chinese, Japanese, Mandarin? Their dialect is different. Their religion is different. The fundamental building blocks of their communication is different. So why even bother sympathizing, right? They don't do anything like us. They can't possibly be like us. This lack of understanding and communication has seeped its way into deeper rooting, surpassing the shallow interpretations of like-minded individuals and gaining momentum into the global press. It's become impossible in me to watch the news without feeling victimized by ad hominem attacks and sweeping generalizations. My father and I have developed a morning tradition, and it evolved ever since I entered kindergarten. Without fault or hesitation, we would settle into ourselves in the car amidst the pitch-black moments before dawn as we drove towards school. And without even thinking twice about it, I'd turn on the radio onto 98.9 NPR's morning report. I relished the opportunity to explore the vast worlds that exceeded the limits of my 4-year-old imagination. I savored the power in knowing the intricacies of foreign societies. And this simple podcast became the highlight of my childhood. That was until the country from which my parents immigrated from became the topic on the news. I remember screaming in the car, it's pronounced Iran, not Iran. My country's name is not a simple sentence made up of a subject, I, and a verb, ran. The implemented Iranian theocracy does not represent the political beliefs of Middle Easterners. Our individual backgrounds cannot be painted with the single sweep of your brush. And every single time I lashed out in frustration in my car, my father said, Sahar, don't strain yourself. They can't hear you from the car. To me, a young Iranian-American Muslim, the consequences of this inaccurate speech are blatantly evident and should be screamed at every corner of the earth. I cannot tell you how many times I was asked if I had a bomb in my backpack when I walked to school. I can't tell you how many times people assume that no Muslims or Arabs or Middle Easterners were hurt in the atrocious attacks of 9/11. They cannot imagine how much we were hurt as well. I cannot tell you how many times I was asked if my father was a terrorist. I can't tell you how many times I was asked to rot in hell. And I cannot tell you how many times people assumed that they knew me. Assumed that I represented a people and that people represented a religion and that religion was as easy as words on a page or a flag that can be waved. But entire cultures aren't that simple. Every single population has its outliers, and we Muslims did not villainify this amazing nation that I'm honored to be a part of. Lazy journalism villainified us. Now, I receive phone calls. I hear stories of my friends living in New York City forced to disrobe their hijabs because they fear for their safety to go to school in the New York streets, as violent riots upsurge a couple streets down. The social contract is in jeopardy, and it's obvious why. I receive phone calls from my grandparents, aunts, and cousins asking, are you okay? They wonder what will happen to the trade sanctions. They inquire what's to become of the Iran nuclear deal. They want to know when I'm coming back. And I just wish I could answer their queries. It's a little funny. My father has been here for 18 years. He's been here since he was 18 years old. And he likes to say that he fixes broken hearts for a living. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon, and he spends hours devoting his time to his community. I cannot tell you how many times he has had more than 4 or 5 surgeries a day. And there have been nights where he doesn't come home for 3 days because he's in the hospital taking cases that the other doctors won't. It's kind of ironic how he's here fixing the broken hearts of this community when his heart is broken and his family is across seas. The movement for political correctness is more than a plea to cease name-calling and mudslinging. It's a demand for cultural respect and acceptance in a nation that seems to have forgotten the very fundamentals of our First Amendment rights. But how do we make such a dramatic leap? Where do we even start to mend the wounds that have penetrated the flesh and has shown no signs of healing over the last few decades? We must understand. And to understand, we must communicate, and to communicate, we must speak. To bridge the gap between cultures that have been painted as mutually exclusive, to resolve the undeserving blame of innocent individuals, and to heal prominent discriminatory issues, we must connect with individuals of different backgrounds. A prominent Muslim American figure, Reza Aslan, spoke in a TED Talk recently in San Francisco, and in it he said that there was a national poll that surveyed individuals that didn't know a single Muslim American. 80% of them had a negative view towards Islam. Then they asked a group of people that only knew one Muslim. Just one. And the negativity factor was cut in half. Education doesn't change minds, statistics doesn't change minds, relationships change people's minds. I'm hoping that by speaking to you today, we can establish a relationship, establish a connection to see that we are all one people, that despite our different religions, we all preach love and kindness and acceptance. Do not be fooled by the disbarring tricks played by interpretations and promoters of inequality. Remember that communication leads to understanding and that humanity is our universal race. Thank you.
I know your program says that the respondent is going to be Bishop John Stowe. I hope you'll indulge me in one couple of brief things. First of all, I want to acknowledge Rachel Birdvellen of Pritchard Committee Student Voice. And as I ask her to rise, I'd like all of the teachers of these young people that spoke and all of the public and private school teachers in our Lexington community to rise so we can please recognize you. Would all the teachers and educators please rise? And will you join me one more time in recognizing this august panel for their outstanding courage and their
Rabbi Wirtschafter, the introduction was certainly the easier part tonight. But the program says that we have 3 student messages and then a leadership response. But I'm here to tell you it's just the opposite. We had 3 leadership statements tonight, and I was taking notes like a school kid because I heard quite a bit of wisdom coming from some pretty young members of our community. So thank you for standing up. Thank you for educating us, especially with your own stories and your own way of telling those stories and sharing the richness of the traditions from which you come, as well as the uncomfortability that diversity can sometimes be in our community when you're not part of the dominant culture. Zach, I don't think you could have known that you began with the answer to the question I ask every student before I confirm them throughout the diocese, because we too celebrate 49 plus 1 days between the Christian appropriation of Passover and that of Pentecost. Our students don't get it right too often. But more importantly, you said something that speaks of wisdom beyond your age. When you describe the behavior that you witnessed and that you were victimized by in your school as being rooted in ignorance, not malice. I don't know that I would have felt that or thought that. Not sure I still do, but I'm so glad that you can. And not only feel that, but want to contribute to the eradication of that ignorance. And knowing that the path to do so is through love. What a profound message. Thank you. Leighanne, I can't imagine what it would be like to feel alienated in my own skin. And you're so brave to stand up before us and talk about the discrepancies that we so easily overlook, the discrepancies that we're not aware of. And sometimes we think the answer is giving more access to privilege. But unless we make the systemic changes that really challenges the notion of what privilege is all about, and recognize that each one of us comes from a privileged place with a beautiful story and a beautiful history and wonderful gifts to share with the community, and we're just going to create more opportunities for displacement and rivalry, which doesn't lead us towards what we're looking for, the kind of unity that we're celebrating today. Sahar, how right you are about our ignorance of language and alphabets and the need to communicate. I would add to that our ignorance of geography. How many people know where Iran is? They know not to like the place. They know what they think about people who come from there, but they can't find it on a map. They can't find it on a globe, much less can they discover in their own neighbor the beauty and the wonder of cultures that go back centuries and centuries and have contributed so much to humanity. So thank you for representing that culture. And thank you for challenging us, each of you, with the importance of having role models, educators who represent a variety of backgrounds so that you don't stand out because you're different. And that differences can be celebrated because they contribute to what makes us rich and what makes us whole. And the real ignorance is when we don't know what we're missing because our minds are so closed and our eyes are set on what we know best and our ears are plugged and we can't hear the stories of suffering or the stories of triumph. Thank you for sharing yours.
Now it's time for the community response. Hopefully we've learned from our students, from our faith leader, our shepherd, Bishop. Would you please stand and join in singing "For Everyone Born a Place at the Table"?
For everyone born, be water and bread. John Kingsbergen, would you come just a moment? Sahar, I want you to hear the voice of someone who says it correctly from 88.9 every morning.
Not sure what you're asking me to say, Kenny.
Iran.
NPR at 88.9 WBKU.
At the end of our litany of unity, we'll all pray together the page that follows the one you're looking at now.
I'm Reverend Anthony Everett, Western United Methodist Church.
And I'm Josh Murders, the chair of Lexington Fairness.
To each prayer we ask, please respond, we give thanks. We give thanks for the world and its diverse people, for the richness that graces our lives.
We give thanks for our Buddhist sisters and brothers for their sense of peace and relinquishing of self.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Christian brothers and sisters for their message of hope and ethic of service.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Hindu sisters and brothers for their open-hearted acceptance of others and kindly disposition toward those of other faiths.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our humanist brothers and sisters for their emphasis on the dignity and worth of all persons.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Muslim brothers and sisters for their commitment in prayer and the fellowship in the work of peace.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Jewish sisters and brothers for their solidarity in diversity and cherishing tradition.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Native brothers and sisters for their reverence of nature and their ancient and still living culture.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our Unitarian sisters and brothers for their openness to truth and commitment to freedom, reason, and tolerance.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our sisters and brothers who live on our streets, for the sick, for the elderly, for the physically and emotionally challenged, for those suffering with addictions, and all who move us to compassion and care.
We give thanks. We give thanks for our sisters and brothers with diverse traditions, sexualities, ways of life, and ways of thought, for each and every brother and sister that shares the dignity of a common Creator.
We give thanks. We give thanks for every faith tradition, both named and unnamed, for the variety and the richness of all people, for our united quest for truth, for our common dedication to the pursuit of peace, for our celebration of diversity, and for our coming together and working together to be united in spirit, united in mercy, united in memory, united in thanksgiving, and united in harmony.
We give thanks. Found in your program, may we now speak together the words of common prayer. Creator of all, give us grace and wisdom to work with civility and respect for all people. Give courage to those who work to eradicate all bigotry and prejudice in any sister and brother. Help us hold sacred the diversity and the strength in your glory. Renew in us the resolve to build a just society for people of every race, language, and way of life. Let our words and actions always include rather than exclude. Make us instruments of peace, but also make us disruptors. Disruptors of consciousness that judge rather than accompany. Disruptors of the status quo that too often calls sisters and brothers names other than child of one Creator. Disruptors of stereotypes, philosophies, or would-be theologies that do not consider every person as equal and worthy of dignity. Help us create a world where the followers of Jesus, Abraham, the prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Buddha, every prophet, and every person of peace stand together, so none are called or considered children of a lesser God. Give us grace to build a culture to encounter together
Look all around, so much hurt and despair, clouding our vision, we can't see you there. Division takes over and keeps us apart. Come into our lives, how we need a fresh start. For we we need your joy. You came to our world with your light to shine bright. When the darkness hides from our view, how we need your love. We need open our eyes to see the light of you.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to go home tonight with my heart full. And we're not finished yet. I am Susan Lamb, and I am one of the council members in Lexington, and proud to be here to share in this encounter service. A couple of weeks ago, I heard Reverend Dr. Joan Brown Campbell with the historic Chautauqua Institution speak at the Festival of Faiths in Louisville. She is a renowned ordained minister who is truly a leader in the faith community. And tonight, I would like to share one of her prayers with you. Loving God, your reach is broad. Your vision is bold. Your love deeper than the deepest ocean, wider than the universe we know. Forgive us the limits of our loving. Forgive us the timidity of our vision. Forgive us our special pleading, reserving you for us and our kind. Eternal God, your image lies in the hearts of all people. You have given life to us and to people whose ways are different from ours, whose languages are unintelligible to us, whose faiths are foreign to us. Forgive us proclaiming that we alone have favor in your eyes. Creator God, you set the stars in the midnight sky. You brought light into deepest darkness. You brushed away the shadows where fear grows, where bigotry and war and hatred are fed. You sent us a child and love us born. Love was born. Peace was made possible. Forgive us, O God, the fears that reside in the deep recesses of our broken hearts. Help us to recognize you in the words of truth, the things of beauty, the actions of love around us. Peace be with you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Ford. I have the fortune to serve as the Social Service Commissioner for the City of Lexington. It's my honor to stand here this evening and bring greetings on behalf of our Mayor, the Honorable Jim Gray, members of the Urban County Council, including Councilmember Leighanne, and our Department of Social Services. It has truly been an inspirational experience to join this fellowship, this worship, this coming together as a community. And although there's a few of us here tonight, I'm encouraged to know that there are like-minded Lexingtonians, your neighbors, your friends, that believe, just as we do, that we are a caring community, combating those that would like to divide us. I stand encouraged, though, that activities like this consistently and earnestly may bring change to our community and truly reflect how great a city Lexington is. We at 200 East Main Street, the Government Center, the heart of your local government, we would be foolish to think we are immune or isolated or exempt from some of the biases and ills of our society. But we know that coming to events like this and supporting you, our neighbors and friends, gives us an opportunity to reflect and realize that by coming together, there are services still yet to be rendered, programs through local government to be administered, partnerships yet to be forged, and more importantly, neighbors to be embraced. So to the organizers of this event, I thank you for the invitation, and feel free to count on us as Bourbon County government to do everything we can to be in support and of service to your efforts. Thank you.
I'd like to invite this beautiful picture of interfaith clergy leaders to join me up here, please, and our participants as well, our wonderful speakers. Can we give them another hand? They were amazing. Wonderful choir is going to be joining us as we all gather here together.
There's one person that we've left out in a particularly egregious error as we approach Mother's Day. Could we ask Leighanne's mom to please rise so that we could acknowledge you? There.
So my brothers and sisters, as we prepare to leave this place, will you repeat after me? We leave this place with gratefulness. We live this place with openness. Let our living be filled with love and justice and hope